Crafts laid out when you think about it. Those facts. Drinking the Kool-Aid, son. Believe only half of what you hear. You know, you sound like some of the new counselors. We're gonna get along well. I'm just getting ready. Get me ready, I'm glad.
Here in person, as well as those who are online virtually. We'll begin with a roll call.
Mayor Wusso,
Present.
Councilor Godis.
Here.
Councilor Zelinski, Mayor Pro Tem Dame.
Here.
Councilor Weimer.
Here.
Councilor Schachter.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Do I have any agenda changes? Councilor Dunn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to pull consent agenda item E, the resolution 2025-11. I was informed that we need to move it to next council meeting.
Great, so we'll move it to April 17th, our next
Yes.
regularly scheduled meeting. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, we'll bring it back to item number 3, any disclosures of any counselor conflicts of interest. With that, any council announcements? Counselor Zelinski.
All right, so I have a couple. First of all, let's start with this one. All right, so we are reappointing Hunter Causey and Aaron Riccio to the River Commission on consent agenda. So thank you to them. I always love it when we reappoint people because that means it was so good. They're doing it again. Also, look to next month. There will be the ribbon cutting for the 3 Mile Restoration Project. That is to be determined, but it will be in May. In addition, there's going to be kind of a low-key, low-water river cleanup scheduled for April 26th. You can register for that on Eventbrite from 8 to 11 a.m. on April 26th. And that's just to take advantage of, give an opportunity for like our fishing guides and rafting companies that normally are in high season when that regularly occurs in August. And then for the airport board, so the airport board has awarded the contract for the airport layout plan. So they're very excited about that. They're also participating in the largest regional job fair, career fair up at CMC. And they were very excited to give the first 2 checks to the city of Glenwood Springs for the revenue sharing, the repayment to the general fund and also the revenue sharing. So I'm going to hand those off. Yeah. So things are going very, very well.
Any other, oh, Councilor Schachter.
You. 2 items to bring to the attention of the public if it isn't already out there. Number 1, Saturday, beginning at 12:30, our Safety Police Department, there will be Coffee with a Cop, co-sponsored by Target, I believe, from 12:30 to 2. We encourage you to show up, chat, meet who's protecting us and working for us. So that is this Saturday. Secondly, I think it's important to take a look at the city site and be aware of all the spring cleanup events that are being included this year. Partly of a response, we have a modified spring cleanup coming up. There are slots for home pickup on a Friday and Saturday this month. And you have to reserve a spot online. And I believe there are, what, about 18 left, Matt? Something like that? Yeah, anyway, to pick up bulk furniture, pallets and certain things. And then there's a whole variety of other events on the spring cleanup site, on the city site. So encourage you to get involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect.
Thank you.
Counselor Curtis.
Thank you, Sumner. On that same vein, yard waste drop off, it's similar, but that is ongoing and continually. It starts this Saturday on April 5th and it's every other week, I believe, every other Saturday, excuse me. And because it's every other Saturday throughout the year, it's not something you have to save all of your grass clippings forever. I have a minivan. I just throw my stuff in when it needs to, so I don't just let it pile up. There's, as Sumner mentioned, hazardous waste on Saturday the 19th. Also on Saturday the 19th is an Arbor Day event where they give away free trees to the first 50 people. What's that? How many? 100. All right. I got a tree last year. It is a decaf Kentucky coffee tree, which is native. And what makes it decaf? What makes it decaf is it doesn't drop like big pods. So anyway, I thought I killed it. It came back to life. It may be dead again, but I'm getting another one.
Okay, well, that was exciting. Okay, great. So I think we've covered it. There's a lot of spring yard waste and hazardous waste, all kinds of events coming up in the month of April for the city sponsored, and we'd love to have you partake in some of them. There's a lot of information on the website as well as our Facebook page, or give one of us a call, or Parks and Rec Department would also be able to guide you. So thank you so much for all that, everyone. Thanks for all that info. Any additional council comments or council updates? Okay. I'm going to close that and we're going to open the item number 5, citizens appearing before council. As a reminder, this is for items not on, if you're here to respond to an item on this evening's agenda, just hold off and we'll have you talk at that time. This is for items that are not on this evening's agenda. Okay, I see none, so I'll close that as well. And item, no comments. So I'll bring it back to council for a motion to approve the consent agenda. Councilor Dunn.
Thank you. I move that we approve the consent agenda without item E.
Excellent.
I second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we will move on to our actions and or presentation section of our agenda, with item number 8 being our first item, ordinance 2025-12, parking citation enforcement.
I'm not going to make Chief Darris get up and walk to the front of the room. This is pretty straightforward. We had a discussion, I believe at the last meeting or meeting before, regarding the number of multiple unpaid parking violations in the city of Willamette Springs. For the public's benefit, this code change means that after the 3rd unpaid ticket, we will have the option to tow your vehicle and impound it, at which time you will be paying not only towing and impound fees, but you're going to have to pay those unpaid parking tickets too. So that's what you have in front of you. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions on that? Okay, I'll open it up to public comment since it is an ordinance. Do we have any public here to discuss the parking citation enforcement? Any attendees on our Zoom or on our live? Anybody here? If you are, raise your hand so we know you'd like to speak. Okay, we'll bring it back to council for motion or discussion. Councilor Schechter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Regarding ordinance 2025-12, parking citation enforcement, I move to approve.
And a second.
I'll second that.
Okay. We'll go ahead and call that, since it's ordinance, we'll do it officially.
It's unanimous. It passes.
Thank you. We will move on to item number 9. This is planning file 01-25 and 05-25, a major site architectural plan and 1041 review for Canyon Vista at 51993 Highway 6.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just give me 1 second to queue up presentation. All right, we're live and rolling. So this is a development that involves 2 action items, a major site architectural plan and a 1041 review. The project is called Canyon Vista. It was previously reviewed by Planning and Zoning Commission and recommended for approval. The developer, who's of course here with us tonight, is called Cohen Esri, and we as staff have been working with them for a couple of years to bring this project to you. So what the project is, Canyon Vista, is an 80-unit affordable housing project. It received LIHTC funding. LIHTC is an acronym for Low Income Housing Tax Credits, which is a very competitive tax credit project that funds affordable housing. The site, as y'all who have been here for several years will remember, is a former Glenwood Gardens site. It used to be open to the public, although that was several years ago now. It does still operate in a kind of minor way as a plant nursery, but isn't open to the public anymore. It also has a couple of single-family homes that are occupied, a couple of abandoned structures, and kind of a lot of sort of accessory structures that are still on the site. The location is accessed from Highway 6, but it's a pretty big parcel. It's about almost 4 acres. It's located between Highway 6 and Donegan on the north and south, and then the Elks and what used to be the Roadway Inn in between those. This is a capital A affordable housing project, which means that it's housing that the free market cannot provide. There are several sources of funding that make that possible. We just mentioned LIHTC, also private activity bonds from the county, some housing vouchers from Garfield County Housing Authority, some funds that you all allocated from our workforce housing fund last year. And as you will see, there will be some site design flexibility requested from the applicant for some minor aspects of design. When we say affordability that the free market can't provide, here's some examples of what I'm talking about here. The affordability range is from 20% AMI. AMI stands for area median income, up to 80% AMI. And so you see here the range, as low as $358 for a studio at that lowest AMI range. Even at 80% AMI, you're still looking at $1,434 for a studio apartment. You can compare that to free market products that are available right now, like Six Canyons I see is currently advertised at about $3,200 for a 2-bedroom. I think the Lofts is up to $3,700 for 2 bedrooms. So this is a lot more affordable for these. And this allows residents to not only live and make it here, but also save and plan for the future. The project does meet most of our zoning standards. I've included just a quick kind of snapshot of some of the things that I'm happy to go into detail if you guys would like. I'm going to mention 3 items specifically here, just because I think they merit a little bit more attention. The first is one of our design standards that's about height transitions. And height transitions, the purpose of those is to kind of mitigate the effects of buildings, new developments that are taller than those that are around them. And so I'm talking here about the project's west side. There's a mobile home park behind the Elks. And so obviously mobile homes are not tall buildings. And this building is going to be a bit less than 40 feet. However, even though that's a big difference, the grade difference will be such that the high point of this building, the new development Canyon Vista, and the mobile homes is only about 10.5 feet. So that's not a lot of difference. However, we do think that it triggers the height transition requirements, which means that when there's a dwelling that's adjacent, that's 1 story or more lower than the proposed development, they have to provide 3 transition techniques that are in the code. This uses one of them, but not all 3 of them. So that's the first flexibility requests that I'm going to be talking about tonight. And I will go into this in more detail if you like. On the east side, the adjacent buildings are not classified as residential. They're in our extended stay category, so the standards don't apply there. And here's just a look at the elevation on that west side. This is the back building. It meets the parking requirements, actually exceeds the requirements by 2 spaces, has more than enough bicycle parking. However, the second item flexibility that we're going to talk about is the parking in the front setback, which is something that the code ordinarily doesn't allow. In the zone district that this is in, which is the M1 mixed use corridor zone district, there's actually a minimum and maximum setback. And so between 5 feet and 60 feet from the front property line, so you can imagine that takes up a lot of area. And they are programming parking in this front setback. So that's a site design flexibility ask that they be allowed to do that. With the retaining walls, I mentioned that there's a lot of grade difference on this site. There is, and so they have a lot of need for retaining walls here in the back and on the west and east sides. And so there are actually a lot of requirements about retaining walls in our code. We want them to not be eyesores and not stick out. Fortunately for this project, even though they are going to have some tall retaining walls, and they're not doing some things, you know, like offsets in the walls, fortunately, those things aren't going to be very visible for this. The buildings are going to be in front of most of these retaining walls. They're not really going to be able to be an eyesore. You're not going to be able to tell whether they're required offsets in them or not. They're also going to have solar panels on these back retaining walls. So you won't be able to tell whether there are any landscaping that's required in between the terrace or not. So another flexibility request for some of these retaining wall standards. This is an affordable housing project, so obviously they're not going to have a problem meeting our affordability requirements, which for rental projects, it's required that 20% be deed restricted for 100% AMI. They're going to far exceed that. However, this kind of project is a little bit tricky to meet our resident occupancy requirements. I mentioned that this is LIHTC. That means it's a federal funding source, and with federal funding sources come federal requirements. So with things like the Fair Housing Act, it's not possible to require that 20% of the units be occupied by members of the local workforce, as much as we would like that. We do have some conditions of approval to try to kind of mitigate that and get the best possibility that they'll be occupied by people from the local workforce. And that's also a stipulation of the forgivable loan that was approved by y'all last July. So when I've been talking about the site design flexibility asks that they have, this is something that's in code. It's in section title 70 and in section 045. This is one of the incentives that we have for affordable housing. And it says that the city may consider flexible application of design standards, including but not limited to minimum lot size, building height, lot coverage, impervious coverage, setbacks, and landscaping. So that's obviously pretty broad. There's a little bit more detail in our housing guidelines, which just state that there's a maximum height that you can ask for, and specifically says that you can't ask for parking, which we're not doing either of these. So the asks that they have, I'm going to show them a complete list of them next. They are firmly within the possibility for the site design flexibility as the code considers it. So here are the 7. I think the ones that I didn't mention was the width of the planting strip along Highway 6. There's right now, if you can picture it, or if you go on Google Maps, you'll see that there's kind of a yellow-orange kind of brick planter there. So no landscaping except the weeds. And instead of the 5 feet in width that's required by code, it kind of tapers from a little bit less than 5 feet down to about 2 feet. So it's an existing nonconformity right now. And what the applicants would like to do is keep it in its current configuration, keep the sidewalk where it is, make it vegetated, but keep it in that width. So that would be a nonconformity. And the last thing was the width of the landscaped islands in the parking lot. There are, landscaped islands that kind of break up the masses of parking. Code requires them to be 9 feet, but they are proposing 6 feet. And in exchange, we get a project that meets all our parking requirements and actually exceeds them. So these are the 7 that are requested. We have mostly standard referral comments from our city agencies. The engineering department has requested the applicant work with us to relocate a bus shelter. Right now, the bus shelter that would be relocated is in front of the Elks, and it's kind of in the middle of the sidewalk, which is not great. And so this would be relocated onto Canyon Vista's property itself. So it wouldn't impact the sidewalk, or if it did, it would just be a little bit. And in a parallel but separate process, the bus stop at the Elks doesn't have a return bus stop, so you can get on, but you can't get off there, which is obviously not a great situation. And I believe it's the only one of its kind on Bright Glenwood. So in a parallel process, we're going to be working to try to eliminate a turn lane that's elsewhere, that's nearby on Highway 6, and so that we can have a return bus stop and a better bus system for this project. Standard comments from Public Works and Fire Department. We do find that this project meets many of the goals of the comprehensive plan. It helps to direct development to locations and building forms that are cost effective to serve. It helps to provide equitable and diverse housing for the entire community. It helps to support social diversity. It helps to encourage a compact urban form, create a community for all, increase housing density, direct growth to areas where utilities and services can be provided efficiently, and it does meet our future land use map. So there are 4 criteria of approval for major site architectural plan reviews. I won't read them to you, but these are part of the findings that are in your packet, and there are going to be 3 more findings that I'll point out. And the first action is the major site architectural plan itself. The P&Z recommended to approve it with the conditions that are in your staff report. I'll just note that the 7 findings that are in your staff report and that I'm showing here, the 5th, 6th, and 7th are related to the flexibility ask. So those come from our housing guidelines, and they are just basically want to make sure that projects are meeting our comprehensive plan and in public interest. So action item 2, and I know I haven't spoken about it too much, but this is the 1041 review. The more proper name for a 1041 review is a permit pursuant to matters and guidelines of state interest. And this is, they've applied for this because the matter of state interest is actually an area of state interest, which is Highway 6. So certain kinds of projects that are within a certain distance of Highway 6 and other arterial highways and interchanges trigger the need for these 1041 reviews. So there are 22 criteria that apply to it, and I have them in a slide. I can show them to you. I'd rather not read them all to you, but we can talk about them if you'd like. We believe that they're meeting all of those criteria of approval, and so those 22 criteria have become 22 recommended findings that are in the staff report. The conditions of approval that we recommend for the 1041 review are some of the same from the major site architectural plan, but only the ones that really kind of are impacted by the criteria of approval, so not all the same. And again, this is all in your packet. So that's all I've got for you guys. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, I'll open it up for questions to staff. Counselor Schacht.
I have a couple questions, maybe Watkins and Carl. On the, I think it was condition number 5 regarding should it on or before the 40, on or after, I guess, the 40-year period, this were to be sold. Can we make that condition permanent now based on our current inclusionary rules to be no less inclusive than what's in place now? Are we allowed to put a condition like that upon the, say, free market conversion of this property, rather than we'll see what happens in 40 years and then it will be as in the code at that point?
Yeah, I think you could do it either way. I think we felt like the condition as is probably provided a better level of certainty today as to what would happen in 40 years. Keeping in mind too, something I did mention to the Planning Commission is that underneath the change in the state statute, you'll also, as long as that doesn't change, you'll have the opportunity to have a first right of refusal on this as an affordable project if it rolls off as an affordable project underneath the change to state law last year.
And I'll just add to that a little bit. Part of the reason that P&Z recommended the condition as it is, you're free to change it, but is that in 40 years, who knows where we're gonna be? So in
Right.
theory, we're doing code updates often and they're keeping up with what the current conditions are. So in 40 years, hopefully we have a code that matches our current
To deal
conditions,
with.
whatever those are, and whatever we call inclusionary zoning at that
Okay.
time.
Thank you. And another question, can we make the use of community broadband mandatory, or does it have to be optional?
Has to be optional.
Okay, thank you. Darn it. Third one, maybe you can enlighten me. There was a small reference to public access to stairs. I couldn't quite tell where and what that was. Do you mind just
Sure, yeah.
expounding quickly on that?
Yeah, I can do that quickly. I can show you site plan if you'd like, but briefly, it's
No.
it's in the northwest corner. So it'll kind of spiral up, or not spiral, it'll take right-hand turns, but it'll go up the property, kind of to the left of the retaining walls as you're looking at it, so that people can access Donigan from the property,
Got
where
it.
there's a crosswalk and a sidewalk.
Thank you. And the last one, it mentioned raw water irrigation if available. Will it even be available there? Do we know at this point? And if it is available, we're saying they will use it or they may use it.
I think we drafted it, that they,
I think it's a may. It may be a shall if it's available.
yeah.
I don't know. That's to be determined, but we wanted to leave that option available.
I guess I would prefer shall if it's available than may. That would be my only
Yeah,
comment there.
and looks
Thank
like
you.
it was
That's all I
drafted
had
as
at this
shall.
point.
Thank you. Counselor Zelinski.
I was just curious, I didn't see any open space, if this is gonna be like housing, there's no like play area or gathering area or community area in this plan?
There
Or
is
There
actually.
is, okay, that's what I was trying to.
Yeah, I think the applicants have started drawing that out in more detail now, and they can speak to that better, but there is a kids' play area in the back.
Okay,
And I believe they're planning to have a dog run too.
perfect.
Excellent. Counselor Dem.
Oh, thank you. So I got to wrap my head around this flexible stuff. Back in the day, what you showed us, the retaining walls and the parking in the setback and the smaller islands would have called for a variance. Right? Now, we have which code that says we can do it this way?
It is in Title 70, which is zoning, obviously, and then 045, which is the section that includes our inclusionary zoning and our incentives for affordable housing.
So it's the incentive in the, okay, got it.
Yes,
That supersedes the good old variances that we used to do. Okay. Has not really anything to do with the alternate standards, right? That's a different thing.
The alternate standards.
Don't we
like
have
the-
alternate design standards? If something does, you can kind of choose a certain way. That's not the same thing.
Not the same thing.
Okay,
different
got it.
process.
That makes complete sense. And the other thing is, have you or have the applicants had a discussion about the greenhouse that's on the site?
We have, yes. The developers are interested in preserving it or moving it if possible. It comes down to who would take it, if anybody, and how much would it cost. And so we have reached out to, the applicant has reached out to Pickens County, I believe, and then we, the city, have reached out to the owner of the Redstone Castle, where this came from originally. I can go into more history if you'd like, but it was built in the early 1900s and then moved to Glenwood in the 1930s.
Correct.
I believe it looks from a distance, it looks like it's glass, but it's actually plastic panels. And
Really?
so there's interest in preserving it if possible, but we don't have a taker yet, and those details are not really forthcoming.
So city or Historic Preservation Commission or anybody on our end has not spoken out and said we should take it and store it for now?
Unfortunately, that's correct.
Okay. Yeah, surprisingly. Okay, cool. Thank you, Watkins.
Counselor Wyman.
Watkins, thank you. One of the conditions of approval. One of the conditions of approval talks about, that they've not yet met the minimum amount of storage volume. Do you have a sense for the gap, like what still has yet to be met? And is that gonna really, because it's such a tight site anyway, I was wondering if, are they just a little bit off or way off on what they still need to add?
The condition of approval was recommended because in the plans they gave us, they don't offer a lot of specificity about how much
Okay.
is there.
Okay.
They showed us where the storage is gonna be and it looks like it's a large area. So I don't have any concerns that
Is
they'll
it
be able
square
to.
footage per unit? Is that how the
It's a certain volume per square
so
foot.
cubic
there.
volume per unit?
Right.
Okay.
And so they've indicated that that's not gonna be a problem to meet it. We just want to see the numbers in the next reiteration.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Counselor Cotis.
Back to the issue of the greenhouse. Is there any estimate at all? I mean, I know it's not ours. I know it's not ours to mess with. It's a private developer and a private property. Do we have any idea what something like just ballpark idea of how much it would cost to take that down or to help facilitate a transfer to another community group?
A little bit. Back in 2017, someone did a rough estimate and I don't know the details, you know, how they came up with it or anything, but it was over $1 million to try to move it somewhere.
I'm sorry, you said $1 million? Did
Yes.
It's crazy.
you hear what I heard?
30 foot by 30 foot greenhouse?
I'll move it.
Well, it's pretty big. It's got, you know, it's 100+ year old stone. It's a large structure. It would be an undertaking.
Okay, so I think that answers Marco's next question.
No,
Thank you.
Counselor Dwight.
Oh, my turn?
Yeah.
Well, okay, back to the greenhouse. So, okay, that number seems exuberant and way too high.
Keep focus on what.
I know. I know, I am.
Yeah, is this, I mean,
Absolutely.
it's outside the scope of the review?
No, I feel this greenhouse is in jeopardy, and if they're gonna tear it down, I feel like we need to figure out how to preserve it, and I was gonna ask Steve what the city can do to be a little more proactive and figure out how we can take on this greenhouse.
That's probably a little bigger discussion.
Okay.
We have had some discussions about it internally, but I'll have to catch council up.
Okay, that sounds great. I just want to make sure it doesn't get rolled over into dust. It needs to be mentioned.
I'm gonna ask a question with the solar array. I think they're called. I'm curious if it has like, if it's solar tracking, meaning will it move? And if so, will it be disruptive to neighbors on the north side of Donegan? Or is it, you know, situated in such a way that it will not?
So the first part of your question, I don't know. I would defer that to the applicant, whether it tracks and moves
Yeah.
or not. I do not think it will impact anyone on the north though, just because of how much grade difference there is. I don't think
Okay.
it'd be visible.
Excellent, okay. Other questions I had, so to be clear, and I saw it in the packet, but just to kind of put it out publicly, this satisfies our housing 1, 2, 3 grant requirements?
Yes, ma'am. It would go a pretty long ways and probably help us close out our obligation for Prop 123.
In addition to adding, yeah, okay, excellent. Any other questions for staff before I have the applicant come up? Watkins, thank you, appreciate it. We'll go ahead and have the representatives from the applicant.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council, City staff. It's been a real pleasure working with city staff over the last several years and also making the nearly weekly trek. Oh,
Your name.
yes. Nick Emmenheiser, Director of Development for Cohen Esri.
Sorry to interrupt.
No,
Okay.
all good. And I'm here with the overall team, which includes Kyle Irvin, Construction Project Manager, Mike Greshik, High Country Engineering, Julie Pratt, Doug Pratt, Kyle Millar, KTGY.
Thank you.
Yep.
And online I see, is it Enna?
Anna Sivsevic, yes.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Yep, she's with our team as well. So we're going to just briefly highlight some of our portfolio experience around the country, which will give you an idea for the feel that this project will ultimately establish. We'll discuss the site plan and also the residential program. Just briefly, a little bit about Cohen Esri. They are based in Kansas City. I'm based in Denver. I primarily am responsible for the Mountain West geography for Cohen Esri. Overall, though, the group has developed 56 properties and about 3,000 units. And we maintain a staff of about 22 people working on projects in 14 different states.
So you aren't actually sharing your screen.
Oh. Let's do it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so our first project that we just opened up last year here in Colorado, Trails of Lehigh and Inglewood. Beautiful project, 82 units, serving people, households making 30 to 60% of the area median income. Panorama Heights opened up about a month ago. Very innovative project, Urban Renewal Authority initiative, City of Colorado Springs, incorporating a solar array that generates about 40% of the all-electric building's electrical base load. Also, 2/3 of the unit mix is family-sized units, which is a significant lift. Also, a similar accomplishment with our unit mix here in Glenwood Springs. The launch pad in Colorado Springs as well is is a 9% LIHTC project. That's a similar solar array, all electric building. This one serves transition age youth, ages 18 to 25, experiencing homelessness, with on-site services from The Place, who is the primary service provider for youth experiencing homelessness in Colorado Springs. Currently working on the next one for us will be Paragon Place, which is another 9% LIHTC project in downtown Denver, which serves families with children experiencing homelessness in Metro Denver. Just some other brief examples around the country. Texarkana, Texas, we took over what was literally historic Texas's most haunted building in all of Texas previously, and converted it into 93 beautiful loft apartments in downtown Texarkana. We have a project called The Neighborhood in Mankato, Minnesota, which is home of Lewis Sinclair. And so it's comprised of 2 phases called Lewis Lofts and the Sinclair Flats, both workforce housing in downtown Mankato and Sinclair Flats as well. The Landing at 818, suburban Madison, Wisconsin, beautiful, beautiful 4% LIHTC project that serves age-restricted senior households. Another beautiful project, Lofts at Ventura in San Antonio, Texas. Look at that resort-style pool. That's Texas for you. Another Texas project, another 4% LIHTC project, Loma Vista. Village Park is a historic rehab of a large 164 unit project west side of Amarillo, listed on the National Register of Historic Places, with both historic tax credits and low-income housing tax credits. Overlook 157, this one's actually an opportunity zone initiative with some kind of mixed income metrics. About 20% of the unit mix is, 51% of the unit mix is set aside at 80% AMI. So a little bit different program than the LIHTC program, more of a moderate income threshold, but and then overall we've been very busy. So we're at 3,282 units developed so far as a company. So here in Glenwood Springs, we're just talking about 80 units. I'll briefly discuss some previous iterations of this project and how we iterated and got to where we're at now and why. In the aggregate, this project will serve income levels for existing workforce households here in Glenwood who make between 20 and 80% of the area median income. We're currently working on securing and finalizing 8 project-based vouchers, which will allow individuals with effectively no income or living on SSI disability income to be able to live in the project. We're also working on finalizing some on-site social services for low-income residents, and working to ensure that local workforce will receive waitlist priority, as that will probably become the operative operationally how units get filled is off of a wait list, just based on how in demand affordable housing here in Glenwood is. So here's our site plan. You guys have seen several versions of this already. It's 2 bars surrounded by 1 aisle of parking, and then in the back is a terraced retaining wall structure with mounted solar panels. I don't believe that they track. We can confirm that later. Also, they'll be inset into the terraced retaining wall And so they won't, even if they were to track, they wouldn't, they would really have to sort of bounce around there would have to be quite a curvature to the ray. Open space, there are two primary areas of open space. If you can see my mouse, there's a sort of a courtyard and amphitheater program here in the, it's kind of our gateway, open space in the lower bar. And then in the back, beneath the terraced retaining wall, this is where the playground and dog run will be located. Here you can see again, actually probably in better detail, playground here in the back left, and then the dog run next to the playground. As far as amenities go, there will be, really the primary amenity for the project will be a outdoor rooftop terrace on the 3rd floor of the upper building. And then there will also be fitness center on site, property management, community room, pretty standard facilities, comparable to market rate next door, Six Canyon. There will be 4 elevator served buildings. This was the 2022 proposal with originally 131 units. We originally proposed this. It was deficient of parking. If I remember right, it was about 16 or 17 spaces deficient of the parking requirement. We generally, I mean, there's so much demand for affordable housing and need here in Garfield County that we felt comfortable with this 131 units. But this works as well. And this allows us to not have to request the parking variance. As I mentioned earlier, there will be a long list of amenities. One thing I do want to mention is it was an item requesting flexibility was the private storage units. It's a little bit nuanced because each unit has a storage unit, but it doesn't open from the unit. It opens from the corridor and it's in front of each apartment. So I'm not totally sure. I'll defer to Watkins on that, but that might be one of the reasons why flexibility is noted on that. These are typical amenities from our existing projects we've placed in service here in Colorado. These are photos in particular from Panorama Heights in Colorado Springs, as well as Trails at Lehow in Englewood, Denver suburb. Community rooms as well. Fitness centers. And then I won't show you our resumes, but they're there if you guys are interested. Thank you for your time. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay,
Also, our team is available if you have any.
perfect. We'll
more
start with Counselor Cotis.
I think the projects that you have done are beautiful. They don't look like affordable housing or what the perception I think people have had of what affordable housing is. So I want to compliment you on all the other projects and hopefully of dehaunting that Texarkana property.
Yeah.
That's my hope.
Still haunted.
It's still haunted. Well, I'm gonna know then.
I'm gonna look it up later. I saw the Grim Hotel.
One thing we've learned is there is no dehaunting a haunted building. Just the way it
Make it
is.
smudge. But my question is, when the previous iteration was 141 units, 131, excuse me, 131 units. So you've reduced the unit count by 50 affordable units. And you were at that, yes, at that, thank you. At that iteration, you were deficient, you said 15 parking spaces?
I think it was 16 or 17 if I remember right, but I think Kyle Irvin might have that.
That's
number.
okay.
Okay.
Well, I don't care that much. What I care about is 50 housing units that we would potentially not have. Why go from 131 to 80 units when you could have gone from 131 to 121 and still met the parking requirements if you're only, or 115 if you were just those few spaces short? What was the thinking on that?
Yeah, swimming upstream on the variances is one, and then frankly, another that was probably even more overwhelming is right-sizing the project for the financing that's available. One thing that's happened is, the state has sort of, they're at the back end of having distributed all of the ARPA funds that were available previously. And now those are no longer available. So the state was effectively, that their, funding commitment from the state was unavailable at the time of CHAFA application for any project going into, last year's, application rounds with CHAFA. So it was also a function of right-sizing the project for the available financing. And I think you would see that across all of the projects that were resubmitted. Many of them were resubmitted at a smaller scale and still requesting or getting approved for the maximum tax credit allocation available.
So it was a more financial decision than it was anything else.
I would say it's probably a 60% financial decision and a 40% operational decision. Also, additionally, we aim for having one maintenance staff person and one property management staff person on site for every 75 units.
Okay.
So 80 is a pretty close ratio for 1 to 75. 131 units was kind of awkward because that really necessitated having 4 staff people on site. And so that did sort of bog down the operational efficiency a little bit.
So you either needed to go up 40 or 50 units or come down. Gotcha. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that rationale. That's really helpful.
We would have loved to do the 131 units, by the way.
Counselor Schechter. Okay, round 2. We'll do it again.
I will say I appreciate the right sizing for a variety of reasons, but my questions, it looked like in your proposal, there'll be 27 to 74 square feet of storage. Is that what you're referring to that's accessible to each unit from the hallways?
That's right.
Great. And can you give some idea, just for reference, for a project this size and dense, maybe your team can tell, how many square feet are we talking about for a fitness room and a community room? Do we know what size those will be?
Yeah. I'm gonna if Anna's listening and if she might have that data available, if she could just raise her hand, but no worries if not. I'll just give you roughly, it's going to be in the ballpark of 100 square feet for the fitness center and probably about 300 square feet for the community room, but we'll,
It's around, could you come up to the mic?
Yeah.
Be around 800 square foot.
Sorry to interrupt, but if you could
Can you
come up to the
and
mic.
say that?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then you have to say your name too. And yeah,
Hi, my name is Kyle. I work on the construction side for Criminal History.
Thank you.
yeah, our community rooms end up being about 800 to 1,000 square feet. Fitness rooms, 500, 600 square
Okay.
feet, somewhere in there.
Thank you.
Thank you,
That's
Scott.
better than 100 square feet, I think. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
My last question, and I don't know whether it's you or Carl or somebody, I noticed in the application fee waivers, have they been approved by planning and zoning already? And are we approving them?
You
If
guys
we
already
approved
did.
the thing tonight?
No, you already approved the waivers and the loan a
They were
year ago
approved
in
with the
July.
loan. Okay,
Yeah,
Right,
that is
the
not
Thank
what
you.
we're
forgivable
deciding.
loan,
All
right,
right.
sorry.
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Just wanted to clarify. Appreciate it.
Perfect. I'm curious, will you remind me, have you closed on the property?
no, still
You-
pending.
Okay, great.
That's a choice limiting activity. And so whenever you're seeking HUD assistance, in this case HUD vouchers,
Mhm.
you have to keep that pending until you receive your environmental clearance. And so we haven't yet started that review
That
process.
And what, remind me again, the estimated completion time, if in a perfect world, you guys get, just kind of what you're slating,
Yeah,
you think?
well, we're aiming to break ground in September. And
Okay.
then 16 or 18 months?
18 months.
18 months.
Okay, great. We won't make you come back up for that. And I know you mentioned that one of those in your slides, your examples was an opportunity zone. Is this an opportunity zone?
This is an opportunity zone.
It is. Yeah.
There are no, so a tax credit partnership
Mhm.
is structured in a way that it's unable to take advantage of the OZ benefit, which is
Thank you.
deferred capital gains
Thank you.
after the back end of the OZ compliance
Yeah.
period.
And the benefit of the opportunity zone is 10-year, holding 10-year and then selling to the free market. So that's off the table for this. Okay,
Yep.
just wanted to clarify that. And then last but not least, color palette, you're thinking, you know, I saw one of them and I appreciate contemporary, but it was rather bright and bold. I'm curious what the plan is for this.
So I have a question on that, and this
Mhm.
may be for Watkins, but are we locked into the color palette based on what we've presented so far at this meeting, or is there an opportunity to engage with the community on that further?
They can make some modifications to it in
Okay.
the future. What I saw when I reviewed this was earth tones, but
Great.
obviously that can mean different things to
Excellent.
different people. And that
Yeah.
is all that the code requires. They not be too bright and brilliant colors.
Thanks, I wanted to clarify that too. I was I was asking a lot of questions tonight that I might have known, but I wanted to clarify in the public record, so thank you. Counselor Weimer. Oops, hold on one second, I did the wrong one.
I'll echo that your other projects just look amazing. That swimming pool was like pretty killer.
Mhm.
Help me understand or just educate us a little bit how this works. So a 40-year lease, right? Or 40-year sort of
Yeah.
structure to this?
So CHFA, the Colorado Housing Finance Authority, will place a 40-year LURA, or a land use restrictive agreement, on the property. So that's effectively a covenant. Actually, even covenants have to subordinate to the CHFA LURA. So everything subordinates to the CHFA LURA, and that will control the property for at least 40 years. Now, in reality, we like to renovate our properties every 15 to 20 years.
Yeah.
And so when we do that, we typically go back to the state for those competitive tax credits. And at that point, we'll get another 40-year CHFA LURA, or whatever point in the future, if it's a 60-year LURA at that point. Generally, these LURAs, when the tax credit program originally came out in 1986, they were 15-year LURAs. And so, sorry, the presentation keeps burning off. We were losing a lot of these LIHTC properties to the market over the earlier years of the program. So CHFA has corrected that. They have one of the longer LURA restrictive periods in the country, and they've continued to extend that further and further. And we're pretty agnostic, because every single time we try to renovate this property, we're going to go back for additional tax credits to do that, to refinance the property and finance those renovations. And so I don't really foresee a way. I mean, we would have to sort of find a way to finance renovations without affordable housing subsidy, and then and do that for the remaining 40 years in order to ever bring this out of the LIHTC program, which is highly unlikely.
So were the tax credits that you've received, were they in amount enough to allow you to operate for a certain number of years, knowing that this is going to be your income, right? These rents times these units, right? And then you've got staff, you have maintenance, you have repairs, you have all of these things. So the credits that have come in already, are those to a sufficient enough amount that you have now assurance that you could run for so many years in this structure? Or do they kind of trickle? Are they annual credits that you then expect to receive?
Yeah. So I'm afraid the answer is much more complicated than that.
Can you
I
dumb
will.
it down?
Yeah. So we will receive an annual allocation of tax credits for 10 years in a row.
Okay.
However, we'll cash those out up front in advance, because we're selling those tax credits to a bank investor, and we're finalizing that in the next week or so. And that bank, in exchange, is they're placing our ownership group is making guarantees that will be compliant for the full LURA period, that there will be no tax credit recapture. Any operational deficits will be guaranteed, so on and so forth. So that bank is assuming each year, each of those 10 years of tax credits, they come in as expected, And in exchange, they are syndicating, which is sort of they're packaging into a financial transaction upfront the value of all of those tax credits, if that makes sense.
It
As far
does,
as the
yeah, yeah.
operations go, so the reason I put the unit mix there, so these rents are more than enough to finance operations. We've got operations at about 7,000 per unit, which is generous. I mean, it's not generous, it's reasonable.
Right.
The real challenge for financing these projects is all upfront with the construction cost.
Okay, okay. And I think to wrap up kind of my train of thought here, can you just talk a little bit about the certainty, right? That this will be a viable concern, over the long term.
Yeah. So our ownership group is required to, there's about 6 different types of guarantees that they make. One is a compliance guarantee. So we have to pay back the IRS these tax credits if there's any non-compliance. So if any over income households or any other issues, with the affordability program are found in, annual audits, that there's also an annual audit process. There is the operational deficit guarantee.
I guess what I don't want to see is you guys, for whatever reason, some source of funding ends up not coming in as expected, right? And this no longer works. And so, right, that's kind of what I'm asking, right? Is there
We cannot
any,
close, we won't be able to close the project and break ground without having all of our sources fully committed.
okay, because it's a weird environment we're in these days.
I'm well aware.
Yeah, I'm sure you are.
So one thing Kyle wanted to just sort of mention is it's the reason why the LIHTC program is such a great program. It does have bipartisan support. It's one of the few affordable housing programs that has that bipartisan support due to the way that the program has been structured to achieve not just buy-in, but reliance from the banking industry, construction industry, and it's a little bit of something for everybody.
It's a good answer. Thank you, guys.
Great. Counselor Dunn.
Thank you. I think that the staff report mentioned a neighborhood meeting that you guys had. How did that go? What transpired? How did that go down?
Yeah, well, we had one neighbor show up.
Okay.
We were grateful for his attendance. And we just, very intimate group conversation.
That was it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay.
I was at the community center.
Okay, yeah, thank you for following code and having that neighborhood meeting. Counselor Godos.
I just have some kind of health and safety questions. It looks like you have 2 smaller buildings and a larger one, correct?
That's correct.
Do the smaller ones, are they required to have 2 staircases, or is that just something that you guys do because it's tax credit related or federally related?
So follow-up question, are you asking about staircases or elevators?
Staircases.
Staircases, I think so. Yeah, Kyle Millar. KTGY.
And if you can just introduce yourself, that would be so helpful. Thank you.
Yes, Kyle Millar, KTGY. We were the architects on this project. Yes, 2 staircases is required for egressing per code.
Per our code or state code?
Per the International Building Code.
IRC code.
Okay. I know there's legislation that was going to get rid of that potentially, but I think that's in municipalities over 100,000. So I didn't know if that's a requirement you were doing because you have to or because we wanted you to.
It's because we have to.
Okay.
In this particular building type.
How are these sprinkled? I mean, do you have good fire flows, everything?
Yeah.
Okay. So you feel pretty confident in that? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I do not see any further questions from council unless anyone has anything. Okay. With that, I'll let you go ahead and sit down. I'm going to take some public comment.
Great, thank you, council.
Okay. I don't have a sign up list. So as I open it up to public comment, if you can each come up one at a time. As a reminder, 3 minutes. Please keep it to the subject matter. I hate to interrupt people, so if you can just watch the timer and finish, then I don't have to interrupt you, and I appreciate that. So come on up.
Good evening, council, staff. My name is Bart Victor. I'm at 607 West Bank Road, Glenwood Springs. I'm also on board of Mitchell Cooper. And I own Charcoal Burger, which is 72 years young this year in the West Glenwood area, as you probably might know. And it's also in the water district of Mitchell Cooper. And the reason I'm standing here this evening is I'm very concerned. I think it's a great project. We think the world of McPherson's, and these guys have proven that this is good stuff. There's some vagueness here that I want to make sure. I don't know what you all know or anything. And so I'm just going to assume that it's nothing right now. Okay. There's a contract, and anybody in that district from where it's now Six Canyons to the Red Mountain Inn have to have Mitchell Cooper's consent to go away from that water. And that's not happening. And, regardless of what anybody says, I mean, there's litigation. That's, whatever. The point of I build golf courses, and I've been around the world. I've done all this for a long time. There's never enough water. And we want to make sure we keep our water and make it usable by not letting too many people go away from what we have and going, whether it's on city water or another system. And I want to make sure that you guys, if you haven't seen that contract that we have that was drawn up by the city of Glenwood Springs back in the early 80s, presented to Mitchell Cooper, and it's a binding contract. So I digress back to the fact that there's a couple of people here that'll give you some more information in our group. And I just wanted to make sure that you hear us out and maybe understand more than you might right this minute. Thank
We
you.
appreciate it. Thanks for coming up.
Hi, my name is Monica Wolney. I'm the owner of the Hanging Lake Inn in West Glenwood. I am one of the shareholders for Mitchell Cooper. And there is an agreement back from 1985. And in this agreement, on the 5th page, the 6th character going into it says, the city agrees it will now provide water services to the company's shareholders, which is us, or within the company's service area without the prior written consent of the company. According to what you guys had wrote, was that let me find it. So basically what's that the applicant, Hanlon said the applicant has and will serve letter from the city of Glenwood Springs. So if Hanlon thinks this is correct, that he is going to go and give water to a will call letter, or Langhurst is, you guys are breaching contract. I am going to give you the contract. You guys can share it. You can go to page 5 and read it for yourself. It is underlined. I am not in agreement with Hanlon, and I think that once you read that contract, you will see that he is directing you the wrong way. And to the owners that are buying this, that if this continues, there's a legal situation and we will stop this, and their funding could get postponed to the point that this will never close. So I just want to give you guys that, and that's it.
Thank you. Thanks for those comments. Anybody else this evening? Hey, Artie.
Good evening. My name's Art Rothman. I live at 721 County Road 170 in Carbondale, and I'm president of the Mitchell Cooper Board of Directors. Just want to follow up and give some more details on what my associates here said. One, it's crucial that trust and transparency are the cornerstones of the relationship between this board and the citizens of Glenwood. I'm deeply concerned about the lack of transparency causing mistrust and what I believe is a misuse of public funds in the form of attorney fees to obstruct and defy a valid contract, which they've referred to. And I apologize, we were hoping to have a copy of the contract for everybody here, and I think some of you already have it. Certainly your attorneys have it, but there was a problem with the person who was supposed to bring it had a family emergency tonight. In 1984, city attorneys offered a contract to the shareholders of Mitchell Cooper Water System, which was accepted by Mitchell Cooper and signed by the then sitting mayor. Now city's paying a fortune in attorney fees for a legal good faith bond made with its citizens and taxpayers. And on top of that, we now have Rafter adding its taxpayer money to pile on this attack on Mitchell Cooper. Council has never given us a chance to explain our case. You've met in closed sessions to discuss us, but never included us as a group. From your attorneys, we've heard misinformation provided to them by the folks who will get our water rights when you destroy us. At a time when everyone in Colorado is freaked out over water shortages, Glenwood wants to give away a water right from 1889 that presently supplies 4 to 5% of water to your citizens and visitors. The contract clearly states city can never sell water in our service area without our consent, but no one ever came and asked for our consent. All this was done without even informing us that it was happening. And it continues to do so in violation of the terms of the contract. The subject of our lawsuit is really that simple. The city cannot serve our shareholders with water, yet it does. When we object, the city's response is simply that it will outspend us in attorney's fees. So we are today asking that the council postpones this vote and first sits down with our board to discuss alternatives and work out a solution that will be cheaper for the city and allow this very important development to move ahead while maintaining the good faith that your citizens entered into this contract believing. If approved, the only alternative you're leaving us with is to expand our litigation, to name the property owner in the lawsuit and seek damages from city and the potential developer.
Thank you, Artie. We appreciate you speaking up. Thank you.
You.
Anyone else here this evening to speak on this item? Okay, I've got Stuart online, so we'll open it up. If you can please pop Stuart over to a panelist, set the timer for 3 minutes.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can. Thank you, Stuart.
All right, thanks. Yeah, my name is Stuart Sloat. I reside in Colorado Springs. I'm the former owner of the Affordable Inns, a property there in West Glenwood that was primed to repurpose and turn into workforce and or deed restricted housing that would have created up to 62 units. The city was very supportive. Mayor Rousseau, Councilwoman Kaup, planning and zoning were very helpful. The issue I ran into was the Public Works Department. And what I was trying to do was adhere to Mitchell Cooper Water District that the crew's been talking about here, while at the same time getting the fire suppression water I would need to create apartments out of a hospitality property. I offered the solution of saying I would pay to tap into the city line that already exists out on Highway 6. I would be fine with being metered on that, and would hopefully never use any water. It would be just for fire suppression. But what I was told was this is impossible. We don't know how to calculate a tap fee. There would be cross-contamination between the two systems, even though the Public Works Department knew full well these systems would never touch each other in the slightest. So I guess what I'd really like to just, put forth here is there's a solution where the city can support its existing business owners over there in West Glenwood that are, the Mitchell Cooper Water District members, while at the same time making things work to where a development like Cohen Esries here can happen, and we can get the workforce and affordable housing that are needed. We just need the city to stand up to a Public Works Department that for some reason just wants to stifle this stuff. I had everything lined up. I was ready to go, and then was just given a bunch of BS reasons as to why this couldn't happen. And, you know, it happened with Six Canyon. It happened with RAFTA. It's looking like it, you know, may happen again. But I just would ask you as city council to please represent the people that are in your city. And, you know, look at my solution that I propose, because it can work for Cohen Esri, it can work for the city, and it can work for Mitchell Cooper.
Thank you, Stuart. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay. I am going to bring it back to council, but I want to acknowledge one thing, and that is that indeed there is an active lawsuit. So we will not be commenting on Mitchell Cooper this evening. But I will just add one of my favorite Japanese proverbs, and that is that even a piece of paper has two sides. So we won't discuss it this evening. We'll stick to the agenda item, and I'll bring it back to council for a motion. Or Councilor Gotis.
I just had,
Go ahead.
yeah, I'll. Somebody can make a motion. I already made a
Okay. Yep, I'll be looking for a motion so we can have discussion from it. Councilor Schachter.
Just a point of clarification, we have two items. Do we make a single motion for both or two different motions?
Two different actions,
Okay,
if you would,
so,
please.
let's see then. For planning file 0125, major site and architectural plan for the said property, I would move to approve.
And a second?
With the findings and conditions.
yeah.
With the findings on pages 3 and 4 and conditions on page 5 of the
Exactly.
staff report. Thank you.
Perfect. And a second?
I would second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I'll open the floor to discussion. Would you like to start? Your light's on, so go ahead.
My light stayed on.
Yeah.
I would move to approve. I'm moving to approve and supporting this not simply, it's complicated, but this is a project that is, a lot of work has gone into. We have already given our support financially to this program, and it is one of the programs that meets probably the broadest range of our affordable income goals, and it's site appropriate as well. So I have support for the program. Thank
Okay.
you.
Councilor Gotis, did you have? Councilor Gotis?
Yeah, just back to my concern about fire flows. I guess this is a question, I don't know if it's for Matt or Carl. Regardless of how hypothetical legal conversations turn out, will this project be able to maintain fire flows in the event of a fire or an event like that? I'm very concerned about.
Yeah, I
but-
mean, if it is served by city water, it can do that. The
Okay.
Mitchell Cooper system is incapable of providing fire flows to a commercial property.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional comments at this point? Okay, I guess I'm also going to be supporting it. I live in a world in which more and more people surprise me by being second homeowners, second, properties, they say snowbird. And this is simply an opportunity for people to simply have a home. I learned of a young girl she's pregnant at 16 years old, living in someone's garage recently. And they could not find a place for her. This is the type of place where she might be able to, a landing pad. Another couple got bumped out of their rental that they had for 20 years. They were renting for $800 a month. And she provided, the grandmother provided childcare for her grandkids here in town so that her daughter could work. This is the type of property where they can find home. And so, this is my neighborhood, and I recognize that there will be an impact with 80 additional homes. And so for that, there's always that variable that I take into consideration. And at the same time, the AMI levels on this make it so community members who are just barely hanging on will have a place to live. And that is deeply important to me. When you heard 2-bedroom units at the Meadows for $3,200 a month, how is that sustainable? How does anybody save to buy? How, I don't see average wages increasing to compensate that. So this is this is an opportunity for 80 households. So I'll go ahead and call the question.
It's unanimous. It passes.
Thank you. Thank you all for,
There's
oh,
another
oh, sorry.
action item.
We have a second one. Okay. Counselor Doctor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, regarding planning file 0525 for the 1041 review for Canyon Vista. I would move to approve based on the findings on pages 4 and 5 and conditions on page 5 of the staff report.
And I would second that.
Any discussion? I see none. We'll go ahead and call the question.
It passes 6-0.
Thank you. Now I can say thank you. Thank you all so much. Thank you also for those who came and gave us the whole perspective. We appreciate it. We will move on now to item number 10. This is ordinance 2025-9 code amendment title 070 duplexes and triplexes.
And it's me.
We're ready.
Okay, so this code amendment, proposed code amendment is about duplexes and triplexes. And specifically, it's about where duplexes are allowed and triplexes are allowed and under what processes. So we'll be talking tonight briefly about 3 zone districts, our 3 most zone districts that are least dense, the RR, RL, and RM1 zone districts. Currently, duplexes are allowed only by special use permit in the RL and RM1 zone. Triplexes aren't allowed in any of these 3. And what we're proposing is to allow triplexes in the RM1 zone by a new process called administrative review, as well as allowing duplexes in the RR, RL, and RM1 zone as well by administrative review or by the existing special use permit process. I'll spare you guys the details of what we're doing, the specifics of the changes, unless you'd like me to get into them. But the proposal is to use buffers to limit the number that there could be. This is a change from the direction that we got, which was about kind of a limit per year. We were advised that we couldn't do it like that. So this was our response to try to fall in line with council's direction by limiting how many could be developed, but still opening up some needed housing in Glenwood. The buffers I mentioned that we'll be using different by zone district. Our 2 more rural and less dense zone districts would have a 350-foot buffer. In RM1, which is a significant portion of the city, would be a 250-foot buffer. So these are the areas that we're looking at. In the kind of yellow gold is RM1, which as you can see is a lot of the city. And in the other colors, the kind of purplish and the greenish, those are our other zone districts. There are many fewer parcels here. This is not as much of an issue, even though it looks like a lot of land, because a lot of this is not going to be developable because of steep slopes and other reasons. The buffer, here's an example I wanted to show you guys. This is what a 250-foot buffer looks like from a randomly selected place in downtown. This builds on a lot of work that we've done in the past. As any of y'all who've been on council for the last 2 years know, we've been working on this and related proposals for a couple years now. And it really comes out of the strategic housing plan update that we adopted in July of 2025, specifically the recommendation to update the zoning code to enable up to 3 units on lots currently zoned for single unit housing, requiring deed restrictions for additional units. So the reason basically that we're proposing these changes is that this is part of the puzzle. This is one of the pieces in the affordable housing puzzle. We've just heard about a project that is hopefully transformative on the backs of the Benedict and other important one-off projects. You as council are interested in doing things like promoting ADUs, things like down payment assistance, rental assistance. And so this is a piece of the puzzle that will allow more missing middle income housing to be developed. This missing middle housing refers to housing that's kind of a density between single family homes and larger apartment buildings. This would allow more housing to be built by the private sector, costs borne by the private sector and by owners, to create smaller developments that are inherently more affordable than single family homes. And it does tie into some of our plans as well as the strategic housing plan update that I mentioned. It supports some goals from our comprehensive plan, such as increased housing density, provided diversity in housing type, provide incentives for developers to build condos or townhouse units, because these duplex and triplex can be condominiumized, require qualified workforce and affordable housing renters under subsidized housing programs, or just housing in general, the deed restrictions from the triplexes, to be employed locally within city limits. This would also help to create a policy or program to preserve the existing missing middle housing and to help develop new missing middle housing. Planning and Zoning Commission, when they considered this at their special meeting on March 10th, their main concern was about tear downs in historic properties. We do have some historic housing preservation tools that are available to us, but as you all know, they're optional, and so we can't require people to landmark their properties. So this was one of their main concerns is how many tear downs will happen. Just as a reminder, the resident occupancy deed restrictions that we're recommending with the triplex, this is how we make sure that one of the people in the household is a member of our local workforce. We manage those deed restrictions in-house. There are 5 criteria for text amendments to the code, which I can read to you if you all would like. We've drafted some findings that we believe that these criteria are met, and these findings show that both from our comprehensive plan and our strategic housing plan update, we think support this. And I like to end with a picture. I have more pictures to show you guys if you would like, but I will open it up for questions.
Councilor Dunn.
Thank you. Just a quick question. The reason we couldn't do a number limit on these is because of the state statute that we can't. How does this work again?
State statute that was, I believe it was last year that it was adopted, prohibits caps on development. And so this would, if we put a number on it, it would operate as a cap on development, which is prohibited except in very limited circumstances, like when you don't have enough water or something like that.
And the buffer does not act like a cap.
The buffer does not. The buffer is finding a narrow path through the statute that I think meets the requirements of the statute and the needs of the city.
Got it. Thank you.
Councilor Cotis.
I believe in the original recommendations from both P and Z and the Housing Commission, that third unit was suggested to be tied to AMI of some kind. I think 100% AMI. I don't believe this suggestion does not have that. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. The reason for that, and I assume you're going back to not the P and Z's current recommendation, but going back a year. We feel that we're trying to strike a balance between something that would actually get built and something that would, kind of just exist on paper as a barrier. So yes, it'd be great to have the additional unit deed restricted for affordability, and you guys are free to add that if you like. But we think that what the market would bear, given the limitations that we're already discussing about the buffer, that this would be, the best for our environment right now.
And so how does a buffer in a, say a developer is looking at doing a project and it's the first one in the community, so the buffer doesn't really apply. What constraints fiscally are on that developer currently? Or even if they're the last person to develop something within this buffer, I mean, as long as it's kind of a binary, yes, they can because they're in the buffer, or no, they can't. There's not an additional cost, is there?
The cost is, you know, the potential future income from if it's a rental project, or the sale income if it's not that. And so the way we look at it on the large scale is that there's a percentage chance, don't know what that chance is, depends on the site conditions, that it'll be developed or not as a triplex. And there aren't as many opportunities for a triplex to be developed when there's this buffer situation. So we think that we would get more triplexes. They may not be deed restricted, but that's still a community benefit by adding to the housing supply. It's still opportunities for condominiumization, and it's still opportunities for people to just to, you know, even remodel their existing homes to use the existing footprint and shell of the building to create triplexes out of. We think that's a more likely path, but it's debatable, certainly.
So, but you said that you didn't want to put any more requirements on something that's tough enough to build, but it wouldn't be, would it? I mean, it's, the buffer doesn't make any difference whether it's a cost. I mean, they either can build it or they can't build it. And so, you know, I guess what I'm curious is, when our community plan says we need more affordable housing, we took a big step forward tonight. These are questions, so I'm not gonna editorialize at this point, but how does just more free market housing without any affordability component advance P&Z and Housing Commission's recommendation or our comp plan goals?
It creates more supply. It creates more diversity, creates more opportunities for condominiumization. So, you know, the obviously, I feel like I'm saying something kind of obvious here, but when you spread the cost of a duplex or a triplex, the land cost across those 2 or 3 units, it's obviously going to be less than a single family home is. Is it still going to be expensive? Maybe that depends who you ask. Maybe it depends when it comes on the market, but it'll be less than a single family home is, which is what it might be right now.
So, okay, thank you.
I think at this point, if I don't have any additional questions up here, I'll open it to public comment. Do we have anyone here from the public who would like to visit this evening? Anyone online who would like to take 3 minutes to discuss this, the zoning change? Okay, I'll bring it back to council for a motion. Councilor Hector.
Let me make sure I got the right item. Sorry. Madam Mayor, regarding ordinance 2025 Zone 09 Code Amendment Title 070 duplexes and triplexes, I would move to deny and request the ability to comment.
Okay. Do we have a second for that denial? That motion to deny, Counselor Zelinski?
I second that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you wanted to do something different. Did you want to second it?
I don't know, but I was next.
Yeah, but we had a motion. I had a motion on the table and I was looking for a second. Did you want to second it?
But that's fine.
Okay, okay. So we have a motion, we have a second, and we can open it up to discussion. We'll start with Counselor Gotis.
Yeah, I don't know why, I'll support the motion to deny. Because that's why I was gonna second it, because I think we're in a community where just more free market housing, especially the multifamily variety. Although I do appreciate duplexes and triplexes, right? Like it does advance our housing goals of having more variety, but I respectfully disagree with staff's opinion that supply and demand can dent this housing crisis that we're in. I think we need more density. High density infill is a way, but this is light density. I think if this motion fails, I'll make a subsequent motion to approve this with the change being that third unit to have affordability. As you said, Watkins, you know, that cost per unit does get spread out. It's tap fees, it's site development, it is the cost of land. So there is an incentive for somebody to deed restrict a third unit to affordability. I think we have seen tonight, literally, there is a lot of interest in this 6 months ago, a lot of interest. There is not that interest tonight. We had 0 comments. And I think that it's not because the community doesn't have interest in this. I think it's because our staff has done a fantastic job of reaching out to the community. We've had It wasn't part of this presentation, but it's been part of previous presentations. I believe, half dozen community meetings we've had online, we've had polls. I don't know that we've had as much outreach for anything in my 8 years on council, 8 years this week, than anything I've ever seen. And so I think this is a great example of where we just like beat the community to death with communication, with outreach and engagement. And so the community, by their lack of showing up and speaking either for or against it, has accepted like this is something that's valid and worthy of this community entertain. I don't think it's valid and worthy enough just to approve more free market supply and demand. Supply and demand doesn't, it works in Iowa where you can just plow out under cornfields and build more and more houses. It doesn't work in Glenwood. So anything that we do with zoning, I don't think it's enough. The juice is not enough, is not worth the squeeze just to get a different housing variety. That's great and it's valuable. But if we're going to do something at all, it has to be done with an affordability component. I like the RO, I like other components about it, but if somebody doesn't want to build it because the realized future gains of 100% AMI are not worth enough, then I guess it just doesn't get built. And I think that's the part of the free market I think is going to limit this from potentially going crazy, which was what the concerns we heard, that whole neighborhoods would be demolished and this would be put up. I think the fiscal realities of that third unit will serve as more of a constriction on more than a couple of these getting built a year, way more than the 350-foot circumference is going to do. So I'll support this motion to deny, and I will put forth a motion if this fails to put forth. I'd hope people would consider that.
Counselor Schachter.
Thank you. And as a rep to Housing Commission, I might get a hair long-winded, but I think it's important for this, first of all, to honor Watkins, the Housing Commission, and the others that put a lot of work into this and our changes of spirit, if you will. And the arguments are valid that cost of construction be lower, density and more marketability, ultimately in the long run, theoretically, leads to more housing stock. I also want to be real clear for the public record and for the public that there's been a strong desire by this and previous council as well. The comp plan, housing plan, community desire to increase affordability and workforce housing stock as an opportunity in light of this difficult housing environment. And we have succeeded with the help of staff, our commissions, and 2 councils. And I just want to, sometimes we forget, we reestablish and increase inclusionary housing requirements for new construction. We offered fee waiver incentives for voluntary inclusionary housing, and these have been taken advantage of. We've created affordability and resident-only guidelines and conditions. We've increased in development neutral opportunities with partnerships and participation in use of designated funds for our goals, L3, Good Deeds Program, state grant for city mortgage buy down, all increasing workforce housing as some examples, and development neutral. We've got new affordable and needed housing for seniors, affordable home ownership at the Confluence. Glenwood Gardens just got approved, and we had a prior one at the Greens at Meadows. We've made huge inroads. We've preserved housing stock for long-term rental by restricting and being a pioneer in restricting short-term rentals. We've got city employer and city employee rental assistance program now. We have current work in progress to preserve mobile home parks. We've got community housing guidelines as part of this. We have a housing manager now. We've done hotel conversions with deed restricted units. I just want to reiterate, this is not a rejection of what's going on. This is affirmation. And I don't think there are many Western Slope small communities who have accomplished so much in so short a period of time. And I just want to make sure the public knows that and thank staff. In this case, my motion is based on a lot of what Councilor Goda said. I think this might be at this particular time a solution in search of a problem. And rarely do we get from P&Z a recommendation with so many concerns that aren't resolved at the commission level, which kind of points out this is way more complicated, I think, than we anticipated, and may not address the issue at this point in time well enough for the community. And whether it be RO or deed restricted, there are many things. If I were to approve this at all, it would be a laundry list that would have to go back to P and Z. So for that reason, at this particular time, I think we thank you, but I support the motion that I just made. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Counselor Zelinski.
I really can't say it better than
Mhm.
Counselor Shatner, so I won't try to. But my second was based on the concerns that P and Z had as well. I think that they're valid. I think that, you know, as you say very eloquently, this is a solution in search of a problem. I think we have done a lot in a short period of time. And sometimes when you move that quickly, you maybe don't go down the correct path. And so I think this needs a little bit more time and attention before we do anything, if at all.
I think that there has been so much time and energy and thoughtfulness in this. And I think we're recognizing that generally speaking, we're always trying to look at all options to try, how do we solve this? How do we work better? We do have a geographical constriction. We have only so much buildable land. And so ultimately, we're trying to work with the community to say, let's make our built environment the most efficient and effective for the community that we live in. And how do we do that? And I commend you all for trying to find these solutions. And on this one, I think you're just a few steps ahead of maybe where the community's at. And I hope that at some point, this will come back and the community might even come to you and say, you know, I own a 4,000 square foot house and it's time, I don't need more than 1,000. I've been, you know, like I said earlier, I've been snowbirding in my other condo in Arizona and I only need 1,000 square feet. Let's better utilize this house that I built in the 80s. But at the moment, that's not where we're at. So for right now, I'll also be supporting the motion. With that, we'll call the question. Actually, we did. Yeah, just double checking that we did public comment. So
Yes, Counselor Zelinski. Yes, Mayor Wusso. Yes, Counselor Godus. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Dame. No, Counselor Weimer. Yes, Counselor Schechter. It passes 5-1.
thank you so much. Please extend our gratitude to your commission. That goes to you too. Housing Commission, just a thank you. Counselor Godus, you got your light on? Sorry, go ahead.
Hearing the feedback, I'd like to slightly amend the motion I threatened earlier. I would like to make a motion that there's just too much, I think, work that's been done over the last 2 years by every commission and the community and staff. We've brought the community along to a certain point. Again, I think by lack of anybody here tonight, it's to me, that shows that the community is there and that we're not 2 steps ahead of the community. That being said, I recognize that there's a lot of concerns from P and Z that had a lot of concerns heard of tonight. So I guess I would, I'll try to put it in motion form. I would motion that within the next 3 months for the next council to have a joint work session with P and Z and the Housing Commission with affordability as a main tenet, to see if this can move forward in some way, shape, or form. Just too much work has been done not to get people in the room, because right now P and Z is saying one thing, we're taking the recommendations, we have concerns. Sumner has a laundry list, but I think those can be talked out. And so I guess my motion is that the council has a joint work session with those 2 boards and commissions about this topic and others in the next 3 months with the new council.
Motion dies for lack of a second. Thank you for your thoughtful comments. Okay, we will move on to item number 11, ordinance 2025-13, amendment to section 050-040-070, suspension and revocation of contractor license.
Hannah told me to do it, but you are more than welcome to do this. It's a
I was
Hannah
going to say,
thing.
this is a really simple, so we have, and the reason Matt is at the lectern is we've had some issues with contractors and collections out of the landfill, trying to find the right levers to pull to make sure that people are complying with all the rules, regulations, and paying their bills. One of the levers we have is to allow the chief building official to revoke their license if they fail to pay landfill fees, utilities, taxes, all of those kinds of things. So this is an amendment to allow that to happen in section 050040070.
Counselor Weimer.
In our structure, is there any difference between a revocation and a suspension? Or is it all the same deal? And then what's the,
It's
they-
one or the other.
once they
So
pay the thing, is it like automatic back or is it?
I think that would be up to the building official. That section of the code gives them, they can either revoke or suspend. There's a laundry list of other things that are much more egregious on kind of like the life, health, safety kind of stuff that could result in a revocation.
I was just curious if revocation was the right word in this context. or
I
is
think it
suspension?
is, I think it is in the context of this section.
Okay.
I think that it would have to be something pretty egregious for a revocation. It would likely be a suspension until those fees were paid. But I think giving the building official that latitude that he has in that section makes sense.
Okay.
Any additional questions? I have a question for you in my public comments about, or my counselor comments about, do we charge people who don't cover their trash loads when they like arrive at the landfill? Like if they arrive and they don't have it covered, that means that they're contributing to the trash on I-70 and all the other roads. And I know that this is not an agenda item. I know what I'm doing right now is not protocol, so I just don't want you to leave. I don't want you to leave because I'm gonna ask it in my council comments, okay?
I will stay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any questions? Let's see, this is an ordinance, so we'll open it up to public comment. Any public comment on this? Anybody online who would like to discuss this change? Okay, I'm gonna close it, bring it back to council for a motion. Councilor Dem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ordinance 2025-08, modifying 020202 to remove certain, nope, that's not it at
Nope.
all. Ordinance 2025-13, amendment to section 050040070, suspension or revocation of contractor's license. I would move that we approve such amendment.
And a second. Anyone? Counselor Zelinski. Second. Okay, any comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Did you,
Could we get his mic on?
can you turn on your mic for that? And say, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Sorry, I thought I had done it.
Did you want me to say what I said first or the second
Say
thing?
nay.
Oh, nay.
There you go. Thank
And-
you. Public record saw that vote go down. Thank you all. Okay, we will move on to item number 12, the one you tried to do. Ordinance 2025-08. This is to modify 020-020-020 to remove certain requirements for the composition of the Tourism Management Board.
So this one's me.
Okay,
This is to modify the requirements to be on the Tourism Management Board. Currently, it requires one member not to have any direct or indirect financial interest in tourism, lodging, restaurant, or retail businesses. And of course, Glenwood being Glenwood, this has a possibility of being very constrictive. And it could cause a problem in the future of filling a position. And so we're just trying to get out ahead of it and take care of this problem, just striking that line. Also, the other line we're striking is saying that one of the members is required to be one of those professions. So that's it.
any questions from council? Counselor Zelinski.
Is there a way that we can offer priority to somebody who doesn't have a financial benefit? And if that's not possible, only just for community concerns, I think to give a nice,
Yeah.
broad,
I
unbiased.
think that's something, honestly, that's almost outside the code as you guys are considering your
That's what I was
applicants and
wondering.
who you decide to put on. in this role. I think that absolutely is a factor you might want to consider rather than making it a requirement.
Got it. Understood.
Counselor Gotis.
Have we ever had a member on this committee that doesn't have a conflict of interest and a
We did.
benefit?
We had a nurse on for a while from Valley View who had no connections. And she actually resigned because she was like, I just don't have a strong enough interest or understanding of what is going on this board, the discussions, to feel like I can really bring value.
So basically what we're saying is we've had, everybody has a conflict of interest. We just have it. So now we're just saying, now you just actually officially get to have a conflict of interest.
It depends how far down the weeds you want to go.
I don't.
Okay. Counselor Weimer.
So like on that note, I mean, I have a real problem with striking this. But at the same time, there's this acknowledgement that I'm thinking of the current composition of the board and everyone, right, Aaron? Everyone on that board has a financial interest in the health and prosperity of our tourism business. Every single one of them. Whether they own a business, they own the shop, or they're, employed and tourism goes south and they're no longer employed, or tourism is great and they get a bonus, so it's just a really strange, but I still have a problem striking this.
If I may.
Hold
Margaret.
it may-
Hold on one second.
Oh.
Jeez.
So I was just gonna say, we had Sharon Brady, who she just termed out, but she owned a wine store. That's not necessarily direct, but pretty much every breathing person in Glenwood Springs benefits from tourism. So it's a really disingenuous thing to say that we are requiring, you would have to get somebody almost like outside of the community.
Yeah, the indirect part is the real tricky one.
Because a retail business is not a direct tourist-based business and yet intrinsically benefits from our tourism.
Yeah, all I was gonna say is if it helps you guys is to remember that they are an advisory body to you. You ultimately make the financial decisions. You, as elected officials, set the budget, approve the contracts, all of those, the contract for tourism promotion. So from that standpoint, it's a little bit like saying that somebody who plays tennis shouldn't be on the rec committee, right? I mean, realistically, it's a very similar thing, or rafts in the rivers and shouldn't be on the river commission, that you should have somebody who has no interest in rivers or rec on one of those boards. And you probably wouldn't do that there either.
I think one of the things to consider too is that we do continually talk about those who have a financial interest, but let's also go back a couple steps and say people who have an understanding of marketing for tourist-based economies or businesses, which is exactly what we're trying to do and we have been charged by the public to do with our tourism tax. So tourism tax is given to the city and we need that recommending body to help us understand how best to allocate those funds. And so in this case, having people who are like, oh gosh, I have no idea how you would market to people from wherever or new marketing trends, that's something that I think this change kind of generates and supports. So Counselor Weimer.
I mean, I think Carl's explanation helps. I think yours and Aaron's, and just the reality is, I think you almost want or need people that have financial interests, right? Because they're the ones that are going to be most thoughtful. Yeah, and most thoughtful and in the details and mindful of what they're if it's good for them, it's probably good for the city, right?
I agree.
And so yeah, I think I'm coming around from my repulsion of just admitting we're, a swamp.
Well, I will actually say thank you because I think that's what we're supposed to do up here. I think we're supposed to have 7 different perspectives and we're supposed to question and sometimes digest and understand so that we can make a decision that is holistic and benefits, or at least people understand all the different perspectives. So, Counselor Gotis.
Are we on comments? Or still questions?
No, we have a motion on the table.
Okay.
Oh, no, we don't. Oh, we don't. We're just supposed to have comments. Yeah.
Oh.
Does anybody want to make a motion?
Yeah, sure.
Oh. Look. Oh, it's an ordinance. Okay, great. We'll open it to public comment. There's no one in the room this evening. So we'll see if there's anybody online that would like to make a public comment. Anyone? Carolyn, Donna, or Lee, who's also staff? Okay, we'll close public comment and I will bring it back to council for the motion. Counselor Gotis.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the ordinance 2025-08 to remove certain requirements for the composition of the Tourism Management Board.
A second.
Okay, great. We have a motion and a second. Any additional comments? Otherwise, I'll have Ryan call the question.
I do.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, the reason I made the motion, I think, is kind of to Mitchell's point. This has always been a swamp. This is absolutely a self-dealing special interest board. There's no scenario where the members don't directly benefit from giving us the same recommendation every year, which is to spend more and more money to promote tourism, which brings more money to their pockets. I mean, there's the financial interest of a healthy tourism industry, and then there's what benefits me financially. I mean, I think to the question of, well, tennis players shouldn't be able to advocate on tourism or the Parks and Rec Board or rafters. If I advocate for another boat ramp, that if we build that boat ramp, it doesn't put my kids through college. If I'm a rafter, doesn't pay for my mortgage. This does directly for those people. And it's always been that way. So let's just embrace the swamp that it is. So that's why I made the motion. That's why I support it.
Okay, thank you for those enlightened comments. Counselor Schachter.
Yes, I'm going to make an attempt to temper some of the language that our fellow councilman used. I hate to call this a swamp because I think it disparages the good intent of commission people we've had. And in a town like this, we've already admitted that it's extremely difficult to attract to this particular board people who aren't experts in the particular area. And we do all benefit from increased tourism through our sales tax and general fund. So I don't want to engage in an argument. I just want to kind of temper and modify some of what I heard. Thank you.
Counselor Weimer.
My comment was made in jest and I will retract.
I think he meant to say Sulphur Springs, not swamp.
That's exactly correct.
That's what he meant to say.
Thank you for that correction.
Thank you.
And I agree with you. We have an incredible group of committed commissioners on or I think they're commissioners on our tourism board, and they're great people who work really hard for both their entities in the community and for the city to help us make good decisions. So let's go ahead and call the question. Thank you.
It passes 6-0.
Excellent. Thank you, Ryan. Thanks for bringing that to us. Okay, we are on to council comments. Go ahead and get us started. Who would like to get us started? I'll go first. Let's go ahead and do a shout out to Amanda Madden, who recently won a very prestigious scholarship, was on the front page of the paper, and she is our youth member for Parks and Rec and has been for a couple years. She is awesome. Counselor Dunn.
And to add to that, there's Tyler Hesse.
Yeah.
Who is our youth member on the Arts and Culture Board and actually vice chairman at this point. So
So two-
congratulations.
Just killing it. Front page, our youth members.
That doesn't sell this whole, be on the commissions thing.
Proud of them. In fact, I'm wondering if we could do, I don't know if we did it on our Facebook page, but we should definitely do a little shout out that both of those kids are our youth members. That's awesome. We can do it. Proclamation, next meeting. Next meeting. That's what we're doing. Okay? We'll get them in here. We're gonna do a proclamation next meeting. Thank you, Aaron. That's brilliant. That was a really good idea. Hey, I would like to talk about covers on trash trucks.
Oh, why are you still here, man?
I love hanging out.
Is that a requirement?
Yes,
And what happens if they show up and it's not?
$40.
Is that enough?
I don't know.
I think we should.
I could ask Liz how many show up,
Yeah,
you know, on a
yeah,
month that don't have a cover. You that might know that
okay,
just through the billings, but we do have a fee for that.
Yep.
And most people are aware of that.
okay. I would love it if you guys would look into that. As this is my last full meeting. I had the chance to just kind of with open eyes drive to South Canyon the other day, and there is so much trash. I can only imagine that some of it is coming from trucks and, you know, all the different vehicles that get on the highway to get to our landfill. I think it needs to be steeper. But I will, you know, give that to your.
For commercial only?
No.
Everybody.
Yeah, so anyway, I don't think we need to unpack it tonight, like the time we tried to design a kitchen up here. But that was
Heard
great.
that.
But I think instead, what I would like to say is if it would be possible to bring it back with, and just see, I mean, how many are not doing it and why because if we're contributing to the trash by not having a decent enough fine, then we need to increase it so it hurts a little bit more.
So what we'll do is we'll bring back what it is, whether it's commercial or if
Yeah.
it's residential type
Okay.
vehicles. The worst offenders I have seen driving down the highway are pickup trucks.
Yep. Me too.
And I don't believe it probably covers that.
Mhm.
So maybe we'll take a assessment of how many there are, what we use as definition for that,
Mhm.
and bring it back to council and have a discussion about that.
Okay. And then I'll just, thank you. Thank you for saying so that I could ask that question. The other thing is there's so much trash. Like the roads right now, just, it's ridiculous. All the right of ways, all like the medians and more than I've ever seen. And I don't know what has changed, but something has changed because as a kid, I don't remember that being, yeah, I'm gonna let, there you go.
So I was gonna ask you a question. I thought there is some sort of, I don't know if it's a state law, if it's a local, but you are not allowed to just drive down the highway and have things flying out of the back of your truck.
We have PD here.
Yeah,
That's true.
so. So, because I do think that that's a good portion of that. And so I don't know how we enforce that or how is it like maybe an information campaign where we, you know, like when you're driving your yard waste to the landfill, you do have to throw a tarp over it. Like maybe we could start with something like that with our communications firm, get Slate to help us with that, because I think that probably before we start putting the stick out there,
Yeah.
let's do a little bit of outreach and see if we can't get better
Absolutely.
compliance.
See if there's
We
any,
can bring all that back to you. Yeah.
okay,
That'd be
that would be
awesome.
great. Yeah.
And as a little plug, the streets department noticed that also on Midland Avenue and several other
Yeah.
places in town. So they stopped work and for an entire day, they wandered through town with picking up trash
That's
and bringing
amazing.
it. So just so you know, we did recognize the exact same thing you have seen. That
Yeah.
There's more trash around than normal. So we have been trying to do the best we can to keep up with it also.
Thank you for that.
Huge shout out to.
Can't do
Park-
I-70. That's
No.
crazy.
Yeah, that's not,
So-
here. Yeah.
One more question on that topic. Now that we have the yard waste open every other week, there was some conversation about having it open more than every other week. Where are we at with that?
With the fund that's currently paying for that, we cannot do that.
Understood, okay.
You know, last year it was like 12 or 14, it's $1,000 to operate it kind of every other weekend. We're starting it a little earlier and running it a little longer this year
Got
kind of
it.
thing. So we're gonna be in the probably $15,000, $16,000 range, and pay as you throw is paying for that the best that it can. Just to help the community clean up as best as possible. So we could run it a little more. We would just have to figure out where the funds would come from. And I believe the provider, which is Mountain Waste Recycling, would be willing to do that.
And then, is there enough capacity at the recycling center to take any like grass clippings or things like that, or no? Got it.
Not as of yet. As pay as you throw moves into its where it should progress and less things come to the recycle center, you'll notice we've started compost and we've started metal. We've kind of added things to it, you know, but that one gets out of control fairly quickly because we can fill both those 40-yard containers up in one weekend. And then the next weekend we'll have nothing kind of thing. So it's a little hard to balance in such a small facility. But you never know what the future will hold.
Mhm. Okay, thank you, Matt. Okay, any additional council comments this evening? Counselor Gotis?
My flamethrower is not out of fuel yet.
Shoot.
Yeah, I know. You know, I just gotta go back to how we struck down the triplex thing tonight. I've just been bothered. You know, we've worked with staff for over 2 years on this project. We've gotten quarterly updates along the way. We've had surveys, outreach, meetings, joint work sessions, council meetings ad nauseum. And at every step of the way, we've encouraged staff, we've given them feedback, we've made suggestions and tweaks. And then we had a couple people from a couple neighborhoods show up and NIMBY the hell out of it. And so we said, let's table this. Let's not do this. It's too hot. Let's not touch this right now. But then the Housing Commission, we had a great work session with the Housing Commission, and our mayor made a great suggestion of, hey, you know what? It seemed like, I think she summed up it really well. The community's worried about the pace of which it may possibly go. And so we said, hey, what if we did a cap of some kind? Well, I think we found a way around it. And that Housing Commission was very disappointed, I think is the best word to use, with our political leadership in that moment. And so when we put it back and said, you know, let's take another look and put it through P and Z, I don't know where P and Z was with it, but after 2 years of working through P and Z and Housing Commission, and even our 2C Commission and our professional staff, we still killed it tonight. And so I guess, you know, this is what really demoralizes staff. It kills our boards and commissions way more than a random council comment. Housing advocates and the community in general, when they see an exhaustive process like this, that is comprehensive and robust, and it has a real community conversation, I mean, I think everybody's kind of feeling left at the altar. Maybe not you all, it doesn't seem like it, but I think that the rest of the community probably sees if this process can't get to an end goal and make a suggestion that actually gets actionable recommendations for us to vote on, what will? And so Sumner, your comments about all the stuff we've done, I didn't realize it all. It's fantastic. And I think we need to take those in and sometimes celebrate our victories. But at the same time, I guess I would ask that the remaining counselors and the future counselors don't do this kind of stuff. Kill this thing in its bed in the beginning, or at least within the first 6 weeks, the first 6 months. But let's not take this thing all the way to the end point and then kill something, because that's what we did. And we continue to kill it, and then it comes back because it is a good idea that a lot of people have spent time on. So I think I really want to commend everything that we have done in such a short time with really limited resources. We do not have a real estate transfer tax like the 11 other communities in Colorado do because of Tabor requirements. So what we've done with this $1.5 million for the last couple of years with 2C and other community funds and Prop 123 has been really nothing short of spectacular. And I think it's exceeded all of our expectations. I just think this is more of, it's not even about an affordable housing component. It's not even about a capacity component. It's about, let's take stock of what our staff, our commission members, and the community are at, where we're going, and have the fortitude at some point to either pull the plug or to continue through and make a tough decision. Thanks. And I really, this is my last meeting. I love serving with you guys. You guys are fantastic. I cannot say enough about how much this council, particularly, I've been on various iterations over 8 years. I'll say more at the next meeting, but I just want to say, this is not my flamethrower has run out of fuel. Now my love thrower is out there.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It better be throwing something.
It's throwing out. Yeah. No, there's not a feedback there either. I appreciate how Aaron just like, stop it. Or I love you. We're not getting real crazy, but really, this has been an incredibly functional council. I think the mistakes that we make, that we even acknowledge that we make in hindsight, we go, yeah, that was dumb, you know, or we admit it and we can move on. And I sense that we can do this with humility and the service to our community. So I really sincerely want to thank all of you, and Matt, who's not here tonight, and the previous councils, but really you guys are great. So thank you.
It's been a good run. You guys are great. It's been rewarding. And I too will probably say something at the next meeting, but since it is kind of that tail end of a true council comments, I'll just say thank you guys, each and every one of you. Thank you too for the levity and the chatter down there. That's always good. I know you guys are having fun. But really, it's been a good crew, and thank you guys to staff for always staying late in the evening as we digest so much stuff. So thank you. With that, I'll move on to report from city administration, our city manager, Steve Boyd.
Thank you. Couple of things. I hope everybody has met Tim Bergman in the back of the room. He's our new Director of Operations. That rounds out our senior team here. It's his first week, first meeting, so you'll see more of him. Welcome, Tim. Thank you. A few meetings ago, Paul Backus from McMahon and Company was here to present the 2023 audit. And he goes through some of the detail that goes into that, which is always sort of impressive. It was a clean audit. It was unqualified, meaning that they didn't have anything that they needed to tell us about. So what happens then is we submit that audit to GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association, and it goes through a review process. We then get the review, get the results of those. And every time I look at it, they have recommendations and things. And it always amazes me how much detail they go into. I mean, they tear that thing apart. And I don't know how many years in a row this is now that Yvette has won the Certificate of Achievement in Financial Reporting, but I found out this week that we got that again for 2023. So thank you, Yvette.
Yeah.
They're amazing.
They're amazing, and you're damn good at your job. Thank you. Let's see, Matt and I have been thinking about the youth zone building across the street. I'm probably going to bring forward to you guys an appropriation of maybe in the $20,000 to $30,000 range. We need to fix a couple of holes in that thing and just kind of get it inhabitable. We may come back and then do some paint and stuff shortly after that, but I think in the next appropriation we'll probably bring that to you guys. We finished our council handbook, and I will ask the new counselors as we go, but what we normally will do is put your email address, your city email address, and your personal cell phones on the website and in stuff like that. If anybody doesn't want their cell phone up there, just let me know and we will redact that. Otherwise, we'll probably go ahead and do that as we have in the past. And then the last thing, and I'm holding a check that Aaron gave us from the airport. It's $31,000 that goes into our general fund. So, I have to give, credit where credit's due. I think this was Carl's idea to come up with this. And then, he engaged Greg Rippey and others. And as far as I can tell, things out there are going fabulously well. It's way easier on staff. We're getting paid. It's a much healthier airport. And I think that has been a win-win for everybody. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay. Carl.
Yeah, thank God, Counselor Geddes had things to say because now Steve has to buy it after it.
How much did he have to say?
Between you and Sunder, this is your bet.
I'm gonna miss Jonathan.
Okay, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
We have a social location.
Oh, there's nothing correspondence.
I have to say it.
No, we can say it if there's actually something there.
At some point, we're gonna get a mayor that'll get this.
Get this right. What are you looking for? What do you want?
I want
Social event.
event.
Okay, name it. There you go.
Social event, we're going to reconvene at Dock Holidays tonight.
Great. You want to make the motion to adjourn?
And I move to adjourn this meeting.
And a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all so much. Have a great night.